programming. No BS here, just the facts.
And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly.
Wow.
In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
Welcome, everyone, to Liberty Talk Radio, America's libertarian voice, broadcasting from our studio in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to around the world. I'm your host, Joe Cristiano, and this is your antidote to popular talk radio. Folks, it's time for us to take control of our government now before this bureaucratic, oversized, and self-serving federal government starves us of our property, our freedom, our rights, and our liberty. But to do this, we must shed conventional thinking regarding our political structure. We need to be revolutionaries in thought, dissidents in action. Only after we recognize what our government is doing to our freedom and our Constitution will we start taking it back. And this program is just about that. Today, we're pleased and honored to have as a returning guest, Economist Andy Sutton. Andy was formerly with the financial community. However, now he's involved with the sole purpose of blowing the whistle on corruption and helping people around the globe become their own advocates. During our live broadcast, we'd like you to call in with your questions or comments of Andy or myself, but I'd rather you ask Andy because he's smarter than I am. 646-652-4620. It's there on the screen, 646-652-4620. You can just listen, or if you want to break in and make a comment and to join our conversation or ask a question, press the one button. Your phone number will key up on our screen, and we'll know that you want to ask a question, and then we can let you in. Okay, Andy, welcome back to Liberty Talk Radio.
Joe, it's a pleasure to be here as always, and you're way too modest. You're a lot smarter than you give yourself credit for.
I got my fan club here today. You know, I owe them both money, so that's why they're clapping. You know that.
It's $20 to clap.
Well, Andy, you had mentioned in an email that you wanted to talk about. Actually, it's a favorite subject of mine. Believe it or not, I don't talk about it much, but apathy and learned helplessness. And I think I know what you're talking about, but I'm going to make you expound on that because I complain about that only about 9 times a day. I'm slowing down in my old age. Please tell me, what do you mean by that?
I thought it was more like 900. But
I'm probably close to the truth.
I can put it very simply. The average person just doesn't care about any of this stuff that we're talking about. They've been led to believe by media, government, et cetera, and this is a global issue for the most part, that they can't understand this because it's too complicated when in fact it's common sense.
Right.
But the problem is common sense isn't so common anymore.
Right.
So people they don't care. So there's apathy, and then what you'll also hear is, well, I really don't like this, but there's nothing I can do about it. And that's the learned helplessness kind of thing. And it's a psychological term, but I mean, really, when you think about it, economics is really the study of, when it gets down to it, the human mind, why we make decisions for, buying and selling, allocating, whatever. So yeah, that's what's going on. People either don't care or they'll pay attention, they'll listen to this show, and then they'll be like, well, I'm just one little person. There's not a darn thing I can do about any of this, so I might as well, whatever. It is what it is. I'll just shell out the additional whatever for that tax, this fee, that surcharge, whatever, just do it. And that's really the majority of what, at least what I'm seeing.
Back in the old days, and correct me if I'm wrong, people took more of a survivalist attitude, and I'm talking, maybe 70 years ago. People watched the money that they had when it came in, and they say, how do I allocate this money? How do I allocate these resources? And they bought things that were practical. It was typically food. They paid their rent or their mortgage if they had one. Very few people did at the time. But they were very careful how they used those resources. My mother used to send me down to Morris's grocery store, which was right downstairs. I used to walk down the steps, take about 5 steps to the right, and bingo, I was in the grocery store. And I had a very specific line item of things. 3 slices of ham, a half a pickle, things like that. But people watch their resources very carefully, and they only purchased those things that they needed. In fact, I recall my mother would go shopping twice a year to Bloomingdale's and Macy's, because I used to go with her when I was a little kid. She used to drag me on the subway. We used to go all the way downtown, and it was a big day. That those were 2 special days for her, where she went shopping for a sweater or whatever. And today, that's daily. People don't have the money for it, but it makes no difference, because they put it on their credit card, and if they max out one credit card, they get another one because they get more points that way. And it seems like we don't think the same way as the old European work ethic demanded that we think, because they knew tomorrow may not be as rosy as today, so you better hunker down now before you're forced to. Now, am I being overly dramatic when I say that?
Not really. I mean, the problem is we today are too far removed from real hardship in this country.
Yeah.
You have to go back to the 1930s and early 1940s, and a couple blips there in the 70s and early 80s where, there were lines at the gas pumps and things like that. But we're too far removed, and the problem is you get a generation or 2 away from some of these big events. You look at a history textbook, in a high school or a college even, unless it's an economic or financial textbook, you're going to hear very little about the Great Depression and what that actually meant, what caused it, what kept it going, and the fact that basically the thing was sustained by the Federal Reserve.
Right.
I mean, there was definitely a bubble before that, which was also, engineered by the Federal Reserve, because they were in charge of the money supply at that point. So they created the bubble, they popped it, and, the whole thing kind of collapsed. And then they put their foot on the neck of the American economy and held it down for many years. And then, of course, we needed a war to get out of it. A war that, you know where I'm going with this.
Right. Andy, can I interrupt for a second? We have someone hanging on the phone lines here. I think they want to break in and ask a question. Could you hold on to your thought? Caller area code 918. You're on the air. Your question or comment, please. Did we lose him? Area code 918. Hi, you're on the air. Your question or comment, please.
Yes, I was wanting to know regarding his comment before about people not caring or just not being encouraged enough to care. What if it's more of a social engineering in society that has caused that thinking amongst people? And then also on top of that, fear. Because like you said, it exists, but what can I do about it? Like, what if it's more than that? And then if it is something like that, would it be easy as teaching psychology to the younger generation more that can possibly help fix the situation? Also teach about economics and even if it's Keynesian economics or Marx or Austrian economics.
Okay. May I have your first name, please?
Kevin.
Kevin, when you refer to social engineering, what are you referring to? So maybe we can be a little bit more specific.
Things like Anthony, kind of like Gustav Le Bon or Anthony Bernays, and kind of like how Hitler learned how to control his society, and kind of like how you got Hitler's youth. What if it's the same thing that's been done in America, but on a soft core level?
Okay.
But it's still effective enough to create this type of reaction that they want to see and get out of people.
Excellent question.
Because we have people in.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I interrupted you.
Oh, no, you're fine. You have something to say?
No, absolutely not. Keep on going. You're on a roll, Kevin. Keep on going.
It's just the fact that I know that there are people out there that are trying to break past this barrier that the government and plus others have set up, because it's just that, keeping the status quo keeps them in power. And it's kind of like the currency manipulation. It keeps them in power. No matter what it is, it can be manipulation of precious metals or commodities. It's the fact that it keeps them in power. Even if it's the mind, because humans at the end of the day are a commodity too when you divide workforce by power and then you create jobs and et cetera, et cetera. But it's the fact that what if it's a control pyramid scheme? And if that's the case, then we have to also put in the fact that this can also be a psychological attack that's been put on a generation inside America right now to make us not care.
Okay,
because
Kevin,
I know people my age, and we're kind of like butyrin inside cryptocurrency. He's trying to break through the fiat system by creating Ethereum and et cetera.
Yeah. Well, quite frankly, I'm on the same page that you're on. I agree with you. Let's see what the expert has to say. Andy, what do you have to say about that?
I'm not a psychologist, but I mean, when you look at what's been done, I mean, they don't they don't call it programming for nothing when you watch television.
Exactly, pale live vision.
Touche.
Yeah, I mean, any of this could be possible. I don't claim to know the ins and outs of psychology or anything like that. I mean, I'm more of a aggregate numbers kind of guy, looking at what the consumer is doing as a whole, and what I'm seeing, and this probably plays into what both of you guys were talking about, is a consumer that 30, 35, 40 years ago abhorred debt. They didn't want it. They didn't want to be making payments. It was kind of like a scarlet letter. If you were the one in the family that was making payments on whatever it's going to be, and now it's.
I completely agree.
It's almost a scourge if
in
you're
the
not.
Household. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Go ahead.
I was about to say, I completely agree. Even the households back then in America, we held silver and gold and other things that we can touch or value. But it was after the American dollar left the Bretton Woods standards and moved into the petrodollar and things like that, it's like our dollar decreased in value, and it's like work became almost meaningless. No matter how much we did, we had to take out another income or another mortgage, or it's gotten worse, or even for the millennial and X generation. You have almost over 40 to 45% of Americans under 27 now living with their parents. And it's not that they don't try, it's just that the dollar has decreased in power value. And honestly, it's been challenged right now as the world reserve currency by people like the BRIC system, like Britain. I mean, not Britain, but Brazil, Russia, China, India, and South Africa.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that the value of the dollar has killed it. And I've said all along that it's about labor at the end of the day. What they're doing is they're basically creating you to devote more and more labor to maintain or keep your head above water in their fiat system. I mean, the dollar's lost 97% of its purchasing power since we put a central bank in charge of it. And I think that was done on purpose.
Exactly.
For the benefit of a few at the cost of very many. And I don't think there's really a salient argument against that. To say that these people are morons, while it sounds funny, I don't believe they're morons at all. I think most of them are actually geniuses. And, if this really is a social engineering feat like you guys were discussing, then yeah, they are geniuses because they've hoodwinked most of the globe. Except for 1, 2, maybe 3%, everybody else is on board and they're going with the program.
All right, Kevin, thank you.
What would be your?
No, go ahead, please, Kevin. Yeah, you have another question? Please feel free to ask. We have plenty of time.
For a person that's trying to break past this paradigm, what would be your advice to some a millennial or someone else that's trying to find something past just the work labor? Because all they do is just keep you in something of a hamster wheel. What could you suggest that person could do to make money extra, be it investing or house flipping or whatever it may be?
Well, yeah, what you have to look at is it's not what you make, it's what you spend. And if people could do anything or one thing, they would sit down and examine what the true difference is between a need and a want economically. We say we need this, we need that, we need some other thing. What do we really need? And what do we want? And then look at what's going out. Like I said, it's not what you make, it's what you spend. So if you want to have some additional money or additional currency, I should say, to devote towards things like buying real money, silver, gold, palladium, platinum, things like that, then there has to be a sacrifice. You've got to do it the Austrian way. Deprive yourself of consumption. The savings is capital, and that capital is allocated in some way. So whether you're buying some kind of equipment to do a job, to earn additional wealth that way, or whatever you're using it for. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. We haven't sacrificed as a country, and our government, they're right at the front end of the whole train. When it comes to abusing the future generations with trillions of dollars of debt that they'll never get paid off. Not under this system. This system will have to go away. Something will replace it. Everything will amazingly get zeroed out. But guess what? People like us won't have anything. That's what I believe the ultimate goal is.
Yeah. I'd like to add something to that. I think today, Kevin, what we need to do is we need to invest in ourselves. When we go to college, we're investing in that college. That college is never investing back into us. Not today, it isn't. Unless you want to be, for example, you want to be an anesthesiologist, you have to go to college to be licensed to be an anesthesiologist. But for the most part, we're going and we're getting degrees in worthlessness. Then we are led to believe through this mind control program that these schools have, that when you graduate college, you really should get a master's degree, go further into debt. And now when you have a master's degree and a degree in worthlessness, you can't find a job, and you can't even change a spark plug in your car. You got a problem. So
now
I think
master of being worthless.
we have to invest in ourselves. Everyone has to develop something within themselves. Whatever turns you on, develop it. And I'll tell you, I've had this attempted to have this conversation dozens of times with teachers. I have never gone past sentence number 1 because they either break down, they cry, they get angry because they're protecting the system and they're protecting their institution that's paying them.
Some don't like to realize this. They don't know the material inside some of these books these days.
Oh yeah, they don't even tell the truth. I mean, they tell false history, and they always take out the parts that are uncomfortable. I think we should teach things that are very, very uncomfortable, so we learn by them. All we teach is fairyland stuff, and it really hacks me off. I think we should first of all close all the schools down, close them all down, have the kids learn on their own. I'd rather see a kid grow up and become a good auto mechanic than have a degree in sociology and work for the government in some blah blah program counseling kids, because those kids should be working on cars or airplanes or mowing lawns or doing something or fixing stuff or creating something, or even if it's computers, do it on your own. I'm sorry if I'm ranting now. But I when it comes to the school system, I've had it. I think it's totally worthless. Totally, the people in the school system make 6-figure salaries and accomplish nothing. Do absolutely nothing.
Honestly, I would have to say it's not entirely the school system's fault, because I will say there was a quote, I forgot who had said it, but he says, "I don't want thinkers, I want workers."
Good point.
And I think that reflects heavily into our school system right now, because anybody can find a job anywhere. I'm sorry, you can go to school for a doctorate. You may end up working at McDonald's temporarily until you can find a job and your degree.
Only if you're lucky. Only if you're lucky you get a job at McDonald's today with a doctorate degree.
Yeah, but it's the fact that win or lose, they win. And it's the fact they either get somebody in debt or they get another worker inside the Cox system. Yeah. Like, be it school, because school is important to an extent, and it also helps because adults have to work. But you never know what goes into your kid's head because you're constantly at work. You never know what they're teaching in school because some parents just don't ask. By the time they get home, they want to hear cook dinner, get the kid to bed, et cetera, et cetera. Or sometimes the kid go hang out with a friend. Yeah. Or sometimes the kids just don't listen to the parent.
Yeah, here's something you never hear from someone who's part of the system, is that over 1/2 of the billionaires, that's with a B, billionaires in this world, never went to college. Because they saw the worthlessness in college, because they didn't need it, and they made something of themselves. In fact, Richard Dawson, he was at one time the fourth richest man in the world, never went to high school because he's dyslexic. and now he's putting he's building a rocket to go to Mars. I mean, or the moon or whatever. A personal rocket.
Yeah,
I mean,
Mars 21 project.
So there's no correlation between school and success, none whatsoever. It's a waste of time, a waste of money, and because the governments now are pumping all this money into the school system, what used to cost $35 a credit hour is now $550 a credit hour. You can't win that, and you'll never make it up. Okay, we got to go on. Kevin, thank you very much for calling in. Certainly appreciate you listening to Liberty Talk Radio. Thank you very much. Andy, what do you think of that?
Well, I'm the first person that you've talked to that's a teacher that you get past the second sentence and I don't cry or run into the corner and suck my thumb, because I totally agree with all of it.
They do that. They literally cry when but I'm very polite. I don't come across like this. I come very politely. I say, I have a question to ask you. And I ask them a question. I say, no, this is just a general question about our school system. They get angry, they cry, they walk away. They cannot even handle the question. How could they teach a subject when they can't handle a simple question?
Well, and again, going back to what you guys were talking about earlier, if that's part of the plan, if they want laborers or debtors, what better way to do it than to ensure that a kid comes out of a school system at 18 and can't tie their shoes?
Yeah, that's right.
You look at colleges today, and you look at some of the classes that these kids are made to take before they're even allowed to take college classes. They're taking math classes that my 13-year-old has already mastered the material. And these guys are in college. I mean, it's been taught to us and beaten into our heads that college is a birthright. It's the only way you can make money. If you go to college, you're X percent more likely to make double than somebody who didn't go. And there's more and more examples where that's not true anymore, especially if you're a tradesman or you're good with your hands. You can be a carpenter, electrician, welders, auto mechanics, all those kind of trade kind of jobs. First of all, they can't be outsourced.
Right.
You're not going to outsource plumbing. You can't outsource the building site to China to have the plumbing done and then have it sent back. So you're kind of creating a little job security. If I had it to do all over again, I would have never gone. I would have done what my grandfather did and opened a little garage and fixed cars. Honestly, I would have never gone to college.
Right. Me too. I'm the same way. I think the same way. I regret not going to school, taking auto engineering, because I always wanted to be part of a racing team or drag racing team and travel around the country. But my father almost killed me when he found out that's what I was doing. That's a long story, but that's the truth. For example, I wonder how many young men are told, if you really want to make big money, really big money, take a course in diesel mechanics, get yourself a job in repairing diesel engines here in the States, and then go to Alaska. You can start at $125,000 to $150,000 a year. No one's told that. They have no idea that exists.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, again, it's a system that, if you looked at college, how many years ago, whenever it was that I was getting ready to go back in the 80s, state school tuition here in Pennsylvania, if you worked your butt off during breaks and during the summer, you could almost cover your tuition for the year. And now, you're lucky if you can cover your room and board by working your butt off during breaks and summer and what have you. It's because the government has subsidized the whole system by guaranteeing student loans. They will give anybody a loan, almost. Unless you did absolutely nothing your entire academic life, you can get a student loan. And they train you early to accept that. You need to be in debt. You need this to go forward. And, like Kevin was saying, this could very well be part of some sort of a, social engineering project. Put it this way, it wouldn't surprise me, given what some of the other crap is that these people have pulled off over the generations and so forth. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
Well, it's a matter of dependency. I mean, once you're in debt, then you look to the politicians, say, how do I get out of debt? And the politicians say, well, if you vote for me, I'm going to do this, this, and that, to alleviate your debt or make it easier or whatever, or get some subsidy, whatever. So they're always looking towards the political arena, to solve their problems, when the political arena is the one that created their problems in the first place, and they can't see that.
Yeah, that's the last place you want to look for a solution to anything. I mean, government is the most government. Think about it this way: if you have a charity, all right, and you're gonna, we've had these hurricanes and they've done a lot of damage, and you have all these charities that are, racing in to assist people, and that's very good. That's very good. But here's the problem: when you give $1 to a charity, they have to have a staff, they have an office building, they have overhead, they have a fleet of trucks, so forth and so on. Well, all of those things pull away from that $1, and by the time it gets down to the guy at the end of the road, who's got a tree falling across his house and needs some lumber to get a roof going again, there's maybe 30 or 40 cents left. The best thing you could do is find out somebody who's in need and give them money directly, help them directly.
Right.
And that's kind of the way government is. Government taxes absorbs a huge amount of the taxes with its overhead. You got these jerks flying chartered planes. There's a big scandal about that now. They're worried about $300,000 because some schlep, took a few private plane rides instead of flying commercial. And we got trillions going missing at the Pentagon. Nobody even cares. Yeah. Nobody wants to even ask the question.
Andy, it's only $6.5 trillion. Emily, the girl who's the bookkeeper for the Defense Department, she probably just forgot to put it on the page. It's like $6.5 trillion. She probably forgot to write it down last Thursday. Why are you picking on the poor woman? What's the matter with you? You have no heart.
I know, I'm mean. I'm a jerk.
They make it sound that way, like, Emily forgot to write down 6.5 trillion. Oh, we'll put it in tomorrow, of course, then we forget about it.
I'm going to tell you what.
It's a comical. Hey, this is a clown city.
If some girl called Emily calls in this show, you're on your own, pal.
But I'll bet it's not the Emily that made the $6.5 trillion error. And they make it sound like it's one line item, like they just forgot to book it, and it went on the wrong sheet of paper, it went on the desk. $6.5 trillion is probably, hundreds of thousands of items, and you can't misplace hundreds of thousands, except it's from my the gal who does my scheduling. She can screw up 600,000 items, very, very easily, all in one day, But aside from her, there's no one else in the world that can do that. I'm saying that because she's here now. I can say it to her face,
she's going to throw something at you. But in all seriousness,
I am.
But you see, this is where our focus is steered. Our focus is steered to, and I forget what department the guy belongs to. I don't even remember his name. I just remember hearing about it and thinking how ridiculous it is that people are up in arms over $300,000, which is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. When you have to go and break your back to earn that, it's a heck of a lot of money. But when you look at that in the scope of, $100 trillion, $200 trillion of unfunded liabilities moving forward, I mean, it's nothing. It's like shooting a BB gun at a freight train. But our focus is steered towards these things. And that's why I said they call it programming. And did you ever notice that you have all these quote-unquote supposedly independent news networks, and their big stories are always the same every single day? You ever notice that? It's not that they're all talking about different things going on. It's always right. The headline is always the same.
Right.
All across the board.
Right. My Subaru died about a year ago, and it was what year was it? A 2000? 2009.
2009?
No, it wasn't a 2009. No, 1996. 1996 Subaru. It only had 291,000 miles. So it was still in the break-in period, what I call a break-in period, okay? Yeah. And what happened is that it had aluminum heads, and the heads got pitted, and gas was spewing out of it, and they couldn't find a new engine because it was a very limited run engine that they used in dune buggies, actually. Anyway, so I had to buy another car, and I bought an old, I wanted a van so I could put my bikes in this, and my wife and I can go biking, and I bought a 2002 Toyota Sienna, all right, van, and $5,000, all right? My son went nuts. One of my sons, they all went nuts. You know, they go, what'd you buy an old car for? You could buy a Lamborghini. Why don't you buy a Lamborghini? I said, because I'm saving my money so I can buy the Lamborghini dealership. And I think this is what you're saying. And then I'm telling you the truth. This is the true story. This is the conversation. No, I want to buy the dealership. I don't want to buy a car. I want to buy the dealership, you know. But this is what you were saying. People don't sit there. They don't save for the future. They don't watch themselves. They don't have a net worth like they did years ago. My father came here with nothing. Absolutely nothing, not a dime in his pocket, didn't speak the language, nothing. Got jobs in factories where they beat the hell out of him because he didn't speak English and the whole bit. And yet he became successful because he always invested in himself and his family.
Well, that's the problem, too. I mean, we've also been conditioned, or we've conditioned ourselves, you know, regardless of how you want to look at it, instant gratification. You know, it's not that we have to have it. We have to have it now. And when you start talking about actual money, you know, forget dollars. You know, when you start talking about, you know, let's just talk about capital. It's all about time. You know, an hour work now, is it worth more than an hour work 10 years from now?
Yeah.
You know, or is the capital that's foregone now worth more than the capital that's foregone 10 years from now? It's all, timing is everything when it comes to these kinds of decisions. And we've totally lost our sense of that. And part of it's a multi-pronged issue. Part of it you can blame the academic system for, and I'm talking about K through graduate school. I had one decent professor in graduate school that kind of got the light bulb going for me, and that was it. I mean, the rest of them, they were, you know, you could have gotten them out of a cookie cutter. They were all the same, all the same nonsense, and they couldn't answer any of the questions because they didn't have any answers because the whole base of thinking was flawed. So, you know, you can blame that. But we got to look in the mirror, too, because somewhere, you know, we have a sense of right and wrong, right? You know, most people understand that it's not wrong to kill, or it's not right to kill somebody. So there's that innate sense there. We also have an innate sense of, we have a BS-o-meter, if you will, built in. And people they're ignoring it. They're totally ignoring it when it comes to financial stuff. It's got to be big. It's got to be now. And I don't care what the future is for that. You know, I can give you an example. 20-year-old guy here in town bought a $40,000 truck, borrowed the whole $40,000, and his interest rate's like 22% or something crazy like that.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But, you know, and again, you go in to buy a car, it's not how much can you afford anymore, how much do you want to pay for the car, it's how much can you afford to pay a month. It's a totally different way of looking at it, a totally different mentality. And there are people, they don't care if they pay $300 a month for the rest of their life on a car. You don't have to do that. That's the thing. But it takes a little sacrifice.
Yes.
And people aren't willing to do it for whatever reason, whether it's been socially engineered into them, whether we've just become so far disconnected from economic calamity, and hardship, or whatever. Maybe it's some combination, or maybe it's some other thing that we're not even thinking about. But for whatever reason, we have this apathy and this learned helplessness that, all right, well, I'm just going to sit here and do my thing, and, you know, I'll keep paying it, and, I guess I can't do anything. I guess I'll just have to pay it. And at least the Europeans, they'll turn over some cars and do a little bit of demonstrating. You look at some of the riots that have gone on, and I'm not saying that that's the solution, because that doesn't get you anywhere either, generally, unless you want to get shot at with rubber bullets. But at least they're aware. The Greeks, when all the austerity was going through, I mean, what were they doing? Were they watching soccer matches? No, they were out in the streets. They were at least aware and concerned about what was going on. Not in America. I mean, this whole debt ceiling joke, how many times have we blown through that illegally? I mean, there's laws that the Fed's made again, to curtail themselves, and they ignore their own laws, and nobody says anything. Nobody cares. Oh, well, that's government. I don't know anything about government. I know who George Washington was, but I don't know anything about government. Well, you know what Washington stood for? No, because nobody was ever taught that. Yeah, he sailed across the Delaware River. Okay, what else? He was the first president. Okay, what else? Well, his name's on a dollar bill. Okay, what else? Guess what? He didn't want to be king. They went through this bloody revolution, and then people wanted to make Washington a king, and he said, what are you people, stupid? You don't get it? We didn't do this so we could have another king.
Right, exactly right.
And Washington was very against central banks. Jefferson, very much against central banks. Nobody pays attention to the writings of those guys. We study a little bit about them, and yeah, Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, and he was on the committee of, I guess it was Five Guys, that whole thing. People think Five Guys, now it's a burger joint, not Five Guys who wrote the most defining document in human history.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Unless you want to really learn and get into this stuff on your own, you're never going to find it. Your path will never intersect with that intelligence, that knowledge, that awareness, that information, unless you actively seek it, because it is not out there for dissemination.
Well, isn't this becoming exasperated with our new president, President Trump, where people are under the illusion that he's this brilliant businessman and he can solve all the nation's monetary problems because he's so successful. He only filed bankruptcy 6 times, but we'll forget about that. And so we don't have to worry anymore because we have this superhuman person in office, and we don't have to worry about that anymore. I had well, I'll mention his name. Rick Rule was on the program last week, and I asked him, I said, what did you think of Donald Trump? You think he's make a good president because he's a good businessman? He says, no, he's a wheeler dealer. He's not a businessman. And I think he said wheeler dealer, and I may be misquoting him. But I feel the same way. The guy's a wheeler dealer. That guy really scares me, but yet people are, I think it falls into what you're saying. People actually believe what they see, they hear, they believe it. They don't want to be confused with the facts. They just want to believe what they see. And here's a guy who tells them all these wonderful things. He says blue one day, red the next day, and everyone says, well, that was a different story. They don't want to know the differences. They don't confuse them with facts. They just want to believe. They don't want to know.
Well, and that's what they all do, really. The one before him was the same, and the cowboy was the same. It's a new face. It's a new set of whatever paradigms, whatever you want to call them. Politics is a waste of time. Nothing will be solved with politics. Politics creates problems, but it doesn't fix problems. Politicians the same way. You want to fix a problem? You want to fix the problem in this country? I've said it 100 times. I'll say it again. Look in the mirror. Fix what you can fix.
Right.
Fix your own situation. Stop making monthly payments. Get out of debt. If people would start by doing that, we'd solve half the nation's problems. And another thing, put some of these friggin' colleges out of business. These colleges have $50 and $60 billion endowments, and all they're pushing is socialist, Marxist crap. And it's okay. So that's the professor's opinion. That's great. But the college won't hire anybody who has an opposing opinion. You don't get to hear both sides, and that's
right.
where I'm coming from. I was lucky. I got to hear the other side of the story, and I got to make an intelligent decision. Most people don't get that chance.
Right. Yeah.
You get one side, and that's it. And then by the time you walk out of there, well, that's what you know.
Yeah.
You're an expert in one side of an argument you've never even heard. You don't even know the other side even exists.
Yeah.
You've been taught this as if it's, like you said, it's like it's a religion.
Yeah.
Economics is a religion, politics is a religion. All of these things are. And they're very polarizing, too. It's very hard to discuss any of this stuff with people who don't see the things the same way you do, because everybody's dogmatic about it. We're like that by nature. Nobody wants to admit they're wrong. So if you voted a certain way back last November, now you're regretting it inside, but you're not going to admit that to the guy next door because you can't have voted for a loser or somebody who's not keeping their promises or somebody who never intended to keep any of the promises or whatever the case may be. We can't be wrong. We're not big. We're not man enough, woman enough, whatever enough to stand up and say, you know what? This guy fed us a pack of lies. The guy before us fed us a pack of lies. I'm sick of all of you bums, and I want all of you out of there. How's that?
Yeah.
Them apples.
I think Sally wants to say comment about our fascist president, Donald Trump.
Yes, I did, Joe. Excuse me, Andy.
Go this road again.
When he starts slamming Trump, Joe.
Not slamming him. I'm just introducing him.
Not a
He's
good
a fascist
businessman.
president. I mean, look at the facts. But go ahead,
Yeah.
please. You've got the mic. Take it over.
He's not a good businessman. Let me tell you. Just today, he accepted the resignation of Tom Price. Tom Price, right? Because he spent too much on his air travel.
Oh, that was the guy.
And,
Okay.
yeah, and it was it was more toward $1 million that he spent on.
Oh, $1 million, $1 trillion.
Yeah, not 300,000, but it was more like $1 million. So is that not a good businessman? I mean, he jumped in there, and they don't say this on the news. They just said he resigned, but I'm sure he was encouraged to resign. And Trump's looking at everybody, and he's telling them,
Sally, let me ask you a question.
You can't just do this.
What president, since the time the airplane was invented and built, all right, for the time the airplane was, what president has traveled the most thus far? Unnecessarily.
Joe, we need to find out if he's
Oh,
using...
I can tell you, Trump beats them all. I mean, you can take 5 presidents in a row. He already beat 5 presidents in a row. So here's a guy calling the kettle black, I love that. This guy, Susie Q in California stubs a toe. He has to fly out there, look at her toe to make sure, to console her. Come on, please.
We're getting a big
bunch
no
of
here in the
communist,
studio,
fascist,
Andy.
Socialist. You're all bad. You're all bad.
Help
You're
us,
all
Andy.
bad.
Help.
Obama used Air Force One to go to Broadway.
Wait,
No,
but believe it or not, I know we
Did you
have
hear that,
Obama
Andy?
haters here, and I don't listen. I thought Obama was a horrible president, but so far, look at the mileage logs. Look at the mileage logs. Trump has beat Obama so like 2/3 to 1.
Are
Okay.
they counting all the times Michelle Obama went to Spain?
What?
And all her little vacations? Because she used Air Force One for that, too.
Uh-oh.
Well,
Can you hear all that, Andy?
I'm just saying that they're all bad. I mean, he can't be a good businessman.
He's
He-
very
because
good
if he's a good
businessman.
businessman, he would know one thing. A good businessman says, "Let me see your source and disposition of funds. Let me see your P&L statement.
That's
what
what
I wanna-
he's done.
That's what. No. Oh yeah.
That's
if he did, he'd
exactly
say.
what
he
he
would
did
say what?
today.
He would say, "We're broke. We are bankrupt." He wouldn't get on the plane every 5 minutes to go somewhere.
He has told everybody in all of these departments, see where you can cut expenses, and
why
he's
hasn't he
looking
cut
at
the
it.
expenses?
So,
Why has he increased the expenses?
he hasn't increased
Yes, he
expenses.
has. He's traveled more than any president
Andy,
so far.
Andy, I'll leave it to you to find the numbers for us, okay?
I don't care how many presidents flown how many miles. I know we're $240 trillion in actual debt when you actually use generally accepted accounting principles. And I know that every time the government clicks, every second, that number keeps getting bigger. And there's not any guy, any girl, or any creature from anywhere on this planet that's going to change that. And they can say, oh, well, it was $1 million versus 300,000. Again,
Doesn't matter.
It's like taking a squirt gun and shooting it into the Atlantic Ocean and saying, I made a difference today.
Yeah, you are right. That's
these politicians. That's what they all do. And notice I'm saying all of them.
Mm-hmm.
They all do it. Oh, well, my office cut 17% from our budget. Big whoop. And you voted for, 10 bills or whatever, that spent us even further down the road to bankruptcy. I mean, if there's somebody that's going to take us into bankruptcy, this is the guy to do it.
Let's go. Let's clean it up.
No, Trump is an expert in bankruptcy. I agree. We're going to go bankrupt under Trump, and he's the right man for the job. Now, let me ask you this, Andy. Just today on Fox News, whatever that's supposed to mean. It's not really news. It's Fox propaganda.
It is good news.
Oh,
it's
good
the
news.
Truth.
Yeah, good news. Yeah, it's good. Take the cyanide. This is pure cyanide. It's good for you. But
it's better than everybody else. Right?
So here we go, and they're talking as if everything is fine. Everything is fine. Everything is going great. If you didn't know anything, if you just shoved yourself in front of the TV set and you knew nothing about the United States, you would think that we have an account surplus, a surplus in trade, no debt. No, everything was great, and it's the market's going to keep on going up. There's no stopping it. It couldn't be better. And I'm saying, they don't talk about anything in reality. They don't talk about the balance sheet, what we owe, the problems we have. They talk about, we've increased our production. Yeah, because we're making more bombs, because we're killing more people. But they don't want to know that. They just want to give you the numbers that look good.
Well, it's green arrows and red arrows. And it's been, like I said, the average person has been taught that you can't understand economics because it's too complicated. You have to go to school to be able to understand economics. Your father, my father, our grandfathers, they understood economics better than anybody today.
That's right.
And they can go to any schools.
Yeah.
They don't have any fancy degrees, nothing like that. You don't need to. It's really not that hard. When you spend more than you make, you're going to go into debt. And the more you go into debt, the harder you have to work to pay out of it, or you're going to have to get more jobs. Think of the government as a household. What happens when a household goes into debt? Well, they start racking up credit, and they're paying interest on that credit, and all those same types of things. The only difference is, where the consumer has to call up whatever bank is sponsoring their Visa or MasterCard and ask for a credit increase. Congress just gives itself one. We're Congress. We make the rules. So we say, well, that debt ceiling was I don't know, $1 trillion back in 1986. Well, now we need to increase it again because we really just can't get a handle on any of this spending, and it's all because that jerk that just gave his resignation flew too many miles on the plane. It's his fault. That's the rationale that they want you to use. Yeah. We're going to blame that one guy for decades of economic malfeasance. I mean, it's ridiculous. Politics and discussing it, like I said before you guys started arguing, is a total waste of time.
Well, he's calling the kettle black. He's firing someone for flying too much, and he flies at the drop of a hat for unnecessary reasons. We have a caller on the line, 918. Your first name, please. Your question or comment for us. Caller, you're on the air. Double click it. Hello.
Joe, this is Lloyd.
Lloyd, thank you for calling.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, a little bit of trouble there. Okay, I just wanted to correct a couple of things. One thing...
you can't be correcting me because I'm never wrong, Lloyd. I'm telling you. You can't be correcting me because I'm always right. I want you to know that. Pick ahead.
Okay, see, we went bankrupt in 1933, and we had never come out of that bankruptcy. What we did in, 1936, they got to give us the Social Security number. We are the backing for the bonds that supported the dollar up until the Bretton Woods Accord, and they still do today. You know, they issue bonds on our Social Security numbers. But no, we've been bankrupt since '33, and all of the people in Congress, they simply manage the bankruptcy. They're not doing laws like you think. They're still managing the bankruptcy. And so when you say we're going bankrupt into a more or less a bankruptcy. And I wanted to correct Andy on one little thing there. Andy, forgive me, but you said Washington was against central banks. Really, if you read history, and I'm kind of a history buff, but Washington was really enamored with Hamilton's brilliance. And Hamilton wanted a central bank.
That's right.
And against the advice of the other politicians, he went along with Hamilton to be able to pay the debts that we owed to France. And maybe if Spain, I don't know if Spain ever loaned us the money, but I know France. Of course, we never did end up doing it anyway. But anyway, I just wanted to interject that little bit.
Andy, did you hear that?
Yeah, I'll dig up my sources and bring them.
Andy, I have a question back to the little person, because that's always been my lifestyle, the little person, struggling, suffering, starving. People now, talking about credit, using credit, if we need something, what you're saying is save up for it. My question is, today, what do people do? I mean, if you save some money and put it in a bank, you earn zero interest on that. There's no incentive anymore to set up a savings account because they don't pay you anything.
They want you to invest in the stock market.
Well, what if you just save money? I mean, are we talking about putting it in a jar? Because even if you wanted to buy a gold coin, we're talking, what, $1,200, $1,300 for a coin, 1 ounce. The silver would be a little more pliable. But what's a good answer for people today who want to save some money? Where's our best shot?
The whole thing's not about money, it's about labor. So trade labor. Mm-hmm. That's really the best advice, if you're able to do so. That's where what Joe was saying before, people who have skills, that's where that comes in handy. Just because the money's been corrupted with dirty money, basically. The bills we carry, the digitized currency. I'm not talking cryptocurrency now. I'm talking about digital money, digital dollars, because only a very small percentage exists as cash. The rest of it's digital. So the whole monetary system has been corrupted. So when you're looking at that, I mean, you have to interface with that system at certain points. What you need to do is, if you can do it, minimize the number of points where you intersect with the corrupt monetary system. And basically it comes down to, in neighborhoods, if there's like-minded people around, form co-ops. Do things for each other, take things in trade. The problem with trade is, the coincidence of wants. If I have a car and Joe has a tractor and I really want that tractor, but Joe has no need for my car, that transaction's not going to take place. That's one of the things that money was intended to lubricate. It was meant to eliminate that coincidence of wants scenario. So now, if you're going to go off in a little group and form your own currency, then you're going to have problems with the government, because they've declared that the U.S. dollar is the only lawful money that's good for use in the United States. So you got to be careful with that too. But basically, even going simpler than that, the average family, I don't know how many nights they eat out, probably 2, 3, 4, some people. I know people eat out every night. Cut that in half, and you're going to save a bunch of money. You're going to save a bunch of currency. And then when you take that currency, pay off some debt. And that's a problem too. People are so far in debt, they're looking at, all right, well, I can do this much a month if I don't do this, and this. I can save X number of dollars a month, and it's going to take me 25 years to pay my way out of debt. I'm not even going to bother. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to me to even try. They don't see the value in being out of debt. That's the problem. There's no value seen because it's been built into us from a very young age with those student loans. That's when it starts. Or kids seeing their parents, always in debt, writing checks, making minimum monthly payments on furniture, cell phones, game systems, all this other kind of stuff. And, that's been kind of beaten out of us, that it's good not to be in debt. Yeah. So you have to change your way of thinking first. And the second thing is it didn't take you one night to get that far into debt. It took probably years, so it's not going to solve itself in a day. So it's something you have to be willing to commit to and make a change in your lifestyle. Your whole outlook on how you live your life financially has got to change for any of that to really take hold. And frankly, for most people, it's too much. They won't do it. People who are listening to this show, I would hope that they're among the group that would be able to. Probably most of them already are. Most of them are already out of debt as it is, which is why they're listening. So it's kind of a Zen riddle here, But if we're talking to anybody that is thinking about college, going into debt, go and find out if there's going to be a job for you first, and then find out what kind of degree that job requires, and does it need to be a marquee degree, or can it be from a small state school where you spend a quarter of the money and end up with the same job? You have to do homework, and that's the problem. Nobody does homework. We just go out and we do. And it's almost like there's no consequences. And there are tremendous consequences, and we're living with those right now. And that's, the first caller, Kevin, the dollar's worth very, very little. You need to earn more of them to do anything. That's where it comes back to labor, and that's what it's all about. Yeah. They don't want your paper currency. They want your labor. Yeah. That's the ultimate commodity, is your however many hours a day you can labor. And these guys, these oligarchs, at the top of the food chain, monetarily, that's what they're after. Yeah. They don't care about your currency because it's worthless. They do their transactions in gold. And while Washington was in favor of Hamilton's plan because he felt responsible that the debt needed to be paid off, he was not an advocate of central banking. He was an advocate of, and you could perhaps call it a compromise for that instance, to pay off war debt. He felt that we needed to start off on a fresh foot, and start out with a clean slate. So, and you can look at 10 different books on Washington, and you'll see a bunch of different things there. You need to look at the writings that these guys made of themselves. Read Jefferson's work. He loathed central banks. He has several very famous quotes. Something about being homeless on the continent their forefathers conquered is one of them. If we gave ourselves over to a central bank, and that's what we did, then that's what we've done. We're homeless. Yeah, we have homes, but we don't own them. The Chinese own them. What do you mean the Chinese own them? They own the bonds. They own the mortgages. Other people do. We don't own anything, really. Do you own your car? Probably not. A bank probably does. Oh, well, I have the title here. Try not paying your vehicle registration and see who owns your car then. So how much do you really own? And if we had, and I'm going to say this, I don't care who it ticks off, if we had any kind of a president that had any kind of castanets or any kind of courage or a spine or even an ounce of business sense, that's the first thing they would do. They would get rid of this nonsense that says you can't have private property in this state, because one of the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto is the elimination of private property. Every one of these freaking presidents is all about it, including the one that sits there now. He is not a good businessman. He never was. He's an expert at going broke and running the system and gaming it, as Joe said, Rick Rule played out. And the guy before him, a bozo, a charlatan, a wannabe. Same thing, different flavor. Same kind of rotten.
Well, we have about a couple minutes to go, if that much. About a minute and a half to go, I guess, right?
20 seconds.
Well, how many?
20 seconds on Blog Talk
20 seconds on one platform. Only 20 seconds to go. All right. What's your prediction for the near future?
We'll keep muddling along. That's the plan that's been laid out.
There's got to be a point where the weight of the debt, the imbalance of our balance sheet is such that something gives. Something's got to give. There's always going to be that spark. The snowflake theory that Jim Ricketts talks about. That we don't know what snowflake it'll be, but it'll be that one snowflake that weighs hardly nothing that moves another snowflake, and the whole mountain comes down. Where do you think that's going to be? When do you think it's going to be? Do you have any feel for that yourself?
I don't offer any kind of time-based predictions because they're often fruitless. We see a lot of people offering time-based predictions every year around this time.
Yeah, I know they're never right.
Fall. It must sound cool or something. I don't know. I think personally that the economic snowflake is going to end up being caused by something that happens abroad, something geopolitical, some sort of tension. I mean, there's so much tension between countries now, more than ever, and that's another thing they're really not talking about on the news. Congress has an investigation going into the Russians, and they're still saying the Russians hacked the election back last year. I'm saying it doesn't really matter if they did or didn't. You were going to get the same thing regardless.
Right.
And I know people find that really hard to believe, but guess what? It's been proven out too many times.
Yeah.
You're talking about Diet Coke, Diet Pepsi. It doesn't really matter. They're both bad for you, and they both claim to be good for you.
Right. All right, Andy, our time is now up. I want to thank you so much for being on our program. We had a lot of fun. Of course, we badgered my scheduler who came to the studio today because she likes to be punished, and she should be punished for the way she thinks, quite frankly. And she's also happy to be here. I want to thank you very much for being on our program, and we'll be talking to you soon, and we'll be working on something to see where we're going to go from here, okay?
Sounds like a plan. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it as always.
Thank you, Andy. Take care now. Folks, this is the end of today's broadcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors for the financial support, and we'd like to thank you for listening in. You can further the cause of liberty by recommending this program to your friends and let us hear from you. Our email address is comments@libertytalkradio.com. Remember, as my wife would say, you're either allowing your liberties to be taken away or you're striving to protect them. Unfortunately, there is no middle ground. Until next time, this is Joe Cristiano. Stay well. Stay tuned.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.